Most people enter the world of finance thinking it's like physics, full of rigid laws and mathematical formulas. But as Morgan Housel reveals in The Psychology of Money, financial success isn't about what you know, it's about how you behave. Before we dive into this chapter-by-chapter breakdown of how to master your money mindset, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to Feather Signals if you find this video helpful. It really helps the algorithm share these behavioral strategies with others who are trying to escape the 9-to-5 grind. Today, we're looking at why a janitor named Ronald Read could amass $8 million while a Harvard executive went bankrupt. Let's look at the greatest show on earth, your own mind. Imagine a man named Ronald Read. He spent 25 years fixing cars at a gas station and 17 years sweeping floors at JCPenney. He lived in a small house, bought his clothes at thrift stores, and stayed under the radar. When he died in 2014, the world learned his secret. He had a net worth of $8 million. Now, look at Richard Fuscone, Harvard-educated, Merrill Lynch executive, the literal definition of a finance guy. He was so successful he retired in his 40s to a mansion with 11 bathrooms and 2 swimming pools. 5 years later, he was bankrupt, his home was foreclosed, and his reputation was in tatters. The question, how does a janitor outperform a Harvard executive? Because financial success isn't about being a math wizard. It's about not being a jerk to your own future self. It's about behavior. Welcome to Feather Signals. Today, we are dismantling Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money, chapter by chapter. If you want to bridge the gap between having a job and having freedom, hit that like and subscribe button. Let's head to the dinner table. Chapter 1. No one's crazy. We often look at people's financial choices and think, that's insane. Why would a poor person buy a lottery ticket? Why would a billionaire risk it all on a crypto coin? Housel argues, no one is crazy. We all make decisions based on the scars we carry. If you grew up when the stock market was flat for a decade, you'll never trust it. If you grew up in hyperinflation, you'll never save cash. We don't make decisions on spreadsheets. We make them at the dinner table, where ego, history, and local incentives are tossed together like a salad. Chapters 2 and 3, The Siblings and the Goalposts. Luck and risk are the same force, just moving in different directions. We praise Bill Gates for his genius, but we often forget he was one of the only kids in the world in 1968 with access to a computer. That's luck. His friend Kent Evans was just as talented, but died in a mountaineering accident before graduation. That's risk. The answer is to stop judging your own success too harshly and stop envying others too much. But why do we envy? Because of Chapter 3, Never Enough. The hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. If you keep chasing a higher status because your neighbor got a new boat, you will eventually risk what you need for something you don't even want. Reputation and family are invaluable assets. Don't trade them for digits on a screen. Chapter 4. The Magic of Shut Up and Wait. The human brain is terrible at understanding exponential growth. We look at Warren Buffett and think he's a genius stock picker. He is, but his real secret, time. 96% of Buffett's wealth was accumulated after his 65th birthday. If he had started in his 30s and retired in his 60s, you'd have never heard of him. Compounding is like a snowball. It's small and boring for the first 50 yards, then it becomes an avalanche. The best investment advice isn't buy this stock, it's shut up and wait. Chapters 5 and 6, Survival and the Tails. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two different sports. Getting wealth requires being an optimist and taking risks. Staying wealthy requires being a paranoid survivalist. Think about venture capital. A fund might invest in 50 companies, 40 will fail, 9 will be okay, but one will be the next Uber. That's a tail event. In the stock market, a tiny fraction of companies drive almost all the returns. You can be wrong half the time and still be a millionaire, provided you stay in the game long enough for those tails to find you.
Chapters 7, 8, and 9, the freedom dividend. What is the point of money? It's not the Ferrari. It's Chapter 7, freedom, the ability to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, for as long as you want. That is the highest dividend money pays. But we get distracted by Chapter 8, the man in the car paradox. When you see a guy in a Ferrari, you don't think he's cool. You think, I'd be cool if I had that. The owner of the car is actually invisible to you. Which leads to Chapter 9, wealth is what you don't see. Rich is what you spend, the cars, the watches. Wealth is the optionality of the money you haven't spent yet. It's the hidden assets that buy you a Tuesday afternoon off with your kids. Chapters 10 to 13, the ego gap and the margin of safety. Building wealth is simple math. It's the gap between your ego and your income. If you can learn to be happy with less, you are effectively wealthier than a high earner with a massive ego. And because the world is predictably unpredictable, you need Chapter 13, room for error. Never play a game where a single zero ruins you. You must be a risk-taking optimist about the future, but stay paranoid of ruin in the present. If your plan doesn't have a plan when the plan fails, you don't have a plan. Chapters 14 to 17, the price of admission. We change. The person you were at 20 isn't the person you'll be at 40. Don't marry yourself to an extreme financial plan that your future self will hate. And remember, nothing is free. Successful investing has a price, but the currency isn't dollars. It's volatility, fear, and uncertainty. When the market drops 20%, don't look at it as a fine for doing something wrong. Look at it as an admission fee to get the big rewards later. Beware of the seduction of pessimism. Pessimism always sounds smarter. It sounds like a warning from a genius. Optimism sounds like a sales pitch from a sucker. But over the long run, the world tends to get better because most people wake up trying to solve problems. Chapters 18 to 20, the appealing fiction. We believe what we want to be true. If you are desperate for a get-rich-quick scheme, your brain will ignore all the red flags because the story is too appealing to ignore. Housel finishes with his own confession. He's irrational. He paid off his mortgage early, even though the math said he shouldn't. Why? Because it gave him peace of mind. The goal isn't to be the most rational person on a spreadsheet. The goal is to be mostly reasonable so you can sleep at night. Managing your money is like tending a garden. You can't scream at the plants to grow faster. You have to realize that some seeds just won't sprout. Those are your losses. But if you keep your ego in check, wait for compounding to do the heavy lifting, and build a fence for room for error, your garden will eventually provide you with the only thing that truly matters: time. This has been the Feather Signals breakdown of the psychology of money. If you want to master the behavioral side of wealth, make sure to check out our other deep dives.